So during last session, we were discussing about dependency injection, right? Dependency injection. So far we covered setter dependency injection and constructor based dependency injection. In case if you need any data into your class, you can able to pass that data via setter methods or parameterized constructors, right? And we learned that we can pass any type of data into our class. We can pass any type of data, which means a simple types, collections, anything, right? Any type of data we can pass into our class. Even objects also we can able to inject. Even objects also we can able to inject into our class. Just a minute, guys. Hello. No. క్లాస్లో ఉన్నానా క్లాస్ అయిపోయాకేనా పొద్దున్నే స్టార్ట్ అవుతాయి నేను చేస్తాను నీకే చేస్తాను ఒక 9:30 కల్లా అయిపోతాయి అప్పుడు చేస్తాను మాట్లాడు నేను వేరే పిల్లగానికి కూడా అప్పచెప్పా క్లాసులో ఒకసారి వినమని చెప్పి అవునా సరే నేను మాట్లాడతాను ఓకే యా so yeah during our application implementation, okay, any classes, either your services or controllers, DAOs, if you need any data, any type of data, we can pass via setters or constructors, okay, that we learned so far. Usually in advanced concepts we never use setter or constructors. We will use that too auto wiring only. I mean, in auto wiring only we use constructors. Generally what we do, we avoid manual dependency injection from XML file. We avoid manual dependency from XML file. Instead, we doing it manually. We will assign that task to IOC container, which means in advanced concepts, IOC container will do the dependency injection for us. Will do the dependency injection for us, which is kind of automation, little bit automation. Going forward, we will see automating things with IOC container. Okay. So in the last concept, what we saw is instead of we passing primitive properties from by calling setters or constructors, right? Instead of them, a phone class we implemented a phone class, and we have given phone class with some string phone name, and without having setters or constructors, we can easily able to get this property from properties file. If we can have load this property from property file using at the rate value annotation and using simple dollar expression, right? We can pass key from properties file, whatever key you have in the properties file, right? So you can pass that key here, key from the properties file, and that directly will be injected here. Earlier without value, how we did, either we should have a setter here or a parameterized constructor here, setter or parameterized constructor. And when we have setter or parameterized constructor, how we did this, in XML file we called property tag or constructor argument tag. Either by using property tag or by using constructor argument tag, we have given that value input. Actually, value attribute used here. Using value attribute from XML file, we have supplied input here. Right? We given input here, input data here. Now instead of this value attribute from XML file, you can use simply a value annotation to get this property. And instead you configuring these properties here, we can we can avoid this setter based dependency injection and giving input here, or constructor based dependency injection giving input here. Instead having the setter methods or constructor methods here, simply what you can do, you can keep whatever properties you want in a properties file, something like application dot properties, any name. You can keep any name, application dot properties. Your required properties you can compose here. You can create all the properties here, whatever properties you want. So you can put a key here and the key value you can put here. Phone name, let's say phone name is a key and the iPhone 15 is a value. You know, in properties file we create properties using name value pair like a map object. In map we have key value, right? Here we call them name value, something like map key and value, key and value using equal separator. Now you should put this key here, you should put the same here. So how this property will be loaded here? Usually it will not load directly until unless you use IOC. So you have to load these properties first into IOC. How do we load? Using context namespace, context colon. We used it, right? Context colon. Which property we used? Properties. Context colon property location. So you need to give location of your properties file. You have to give location of this properties file as a input. You need to give location of your properties file as a input here. Just your properties file location as a input you should pass here. Your properties file input you should pass here from the class path. As soon as you load this XML file into IOC, as soon as you load it into IOC, right? First IOC will read these properties, whatever properties you have, right? That properties it will keep it into IOC context. Into IOC object itself, it will remember your properties here. Phone name it will store here. Phone name equal to iPhone 15. It will load it into IOC itself directly. Whatever context properties you use, right? All that context properties it will load it into IOC itself. IOC will remember them. Name value it will remember them. Whenever you configure any other class using this IOC, right? Whenever you configure a phone class or any class, any bean you create here, a bean phone with this annotation, you need to activate this annotation. When you use annotations, right? Especially in Spring, you should activate them. In Spring Boot, by default, all annotations will be activated. In Spring, right? You need to activate them using context colon annotation hyphen config. Using context colon annotation hyphen config, you should activate it. You should activate it. Context colon annotation config you should use to activate it. When you use this, it will activate this annotation, value annotation. Not only value, there are so many annotations in Spring. To use them, we need to activate it. To use them, we need to activate every annotation. So when you use context colon annotation config, so it will say to IOC, let's enable annotations. Annotations developer using in his class, please activate them. When you configure it, it will activate annotations. Now as soon as you load this iPhone class, in iPhone class you are using at the rate value annotation. So after bean creation, right, after iPhone bean creation object it will create, right? IOC will create phone object. In this phone object later it will identify you are using value annotations. right? IOC will visit your class again and it will see if you are using any annotations or not. So you are using value annotation. So under that value you have given a key called phone name. You given a key called phone name. First IOC will do what? It will create your phone object, then it will visit your class. It will go inside your class and it will read all your properties. So during reading your properties, if it identify any at the rate value annotation, immediately it will came to know that okay, developer is required a property. Developer is expecting a property, a value from me. So now it will try to read that key, what key he have configured. So developer configured a phone name key. Then IOC will check whether that phone name key is available or not with him. So the same phone name key is available with IOC, which is already loaded from properties file, right? The same properties are already loaded, it is available. So immediately what it will do, it will inject that property into phone name. Directly it will inject property into phone name. So this is how it will work. In last example, we failed to execute it. The reason, instead using context schema, we used util schema, util namespace. Wrong namespace I used, and even annotations also not activated. This step we missed and this step we missed. That's the reason it was not executed. Now see, we'll do it again. Yeah. See, here is our last example. So we have created two classes, right? One phone class with the phone name as a dependency. Phone class is having a phone name dependency, and I used a key here, phone underscore name. Key is phone underscore name in phone class, and I have a sim class, sim underscore provider. Sim underscore provider is the key for sim class. So first thing, I need the sim provider and phone name keys. I use different keys here, phone name, phone underscore name, sim provider, sim underscore provider. So these two keys I should configure here, sim underscore provider, phone underscore name. So I given provider name and phone name here. Okay, my classes and properties are ready. So then what you should do, in Spring XML file you should activate them. So in Spring XML file I used context namespace, context schema also I imported here, context schema. If you want all these schemas, right, you may go to your Spring Beans properties file and you can see all that schemas there, whichever new schemas I'm using here, right? You may visit Spring Beans jar file. So here you can see multiple schemas available, util tools, beans. Okay, so you usually remember it. Okay, so maybe you may go to context namespace, there also you might find Spring schemas. You can find multiple schemas here. See, context namespace we have here. So this is context schema, you can configure it. Until here this is XSD, you can configure the schema and configure here. See, the same schema name and its path for the schema XSD file path also we have given here. So this is the path. Now what is the use of this schema? I imported it, and the import reference is context. Import reference is context, like your objective. When you create, right, you create a reference. Same way, for every XML import I have a reference here. So using this XML import reference, we call it as usually namespace. We call it as usually namespace. Sorry. Just a minute, guys. Okay. So using context, right? Let me see. Okay, 15 join. So using this context imported path namespace, right? This is reference. Okay, your schema reference. So you can rename it if you don't want the context. If you want to put C only, you can put C here. Then while using that reference, you should use C only. C colon annotation config C colon property placeholder. Just that is a reference. Whatever reference name you use here, same you should continue here. For util also same. Okay, whenever you use namespaces, right? This is default namespace. Beans is a default namespace. By default, all the tags which are used inside beans will be used from this namespace, like your bean tag, import tag. There are so many tags. See, alias, beans, description, import. Okay, so like that. Now this context namespace reference you have here, you are using that namespace and calling annotation hyphen config first. So what it does, it is first when you configure it, it will try to activate your annotations. So which annotations it will activate? Few they mentioned here. If you see, required, auto void, post construct, pre destroy resource, web service, blah 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 blah, multiple annotations mentioned here, saying that when you configure it, it will activate annotations. Excuse me, guys. So in advanced concepts, right, like Spring Boot, you need not to activate them. But in olden days, right, we used to do this. We explicitly activate them. We explicitly activate them. So then only it used to activate them. Then only it used to activate. Otherwise, not activated. So nowadays, all are defaultly activated. Okay, in Spring Boot. Okay. So now when I use this context hyphen context colon annotation config, it will activate my Spring few annotations. Okay, Spring context annotations, particularly while we are using application context container, whatever the annotations are designed for application context, right? All that annotations will be activated. Okay, not MVC annotation. For MVC, there is MVC namespace separately. While using MVC, right? MVC based annotations. MVC means a web based application. So for web based application, we will activate MVC annotations. Okay, that also we can see later. Now, as soon as you configure it, it will activate your annotations. How many annotations I used here? Hardly one annotation at the rate value. Will it activate all the annotations or only value? It will activate all the annotations. But you are not using them. It's okay. You are using value annotations. Still, you should configure it. Now, I need to load my properties. Already I have properties here. These properties, this key value, I want to load it into IOC context. Into IOC, I want to load them. So into IOC context to load them, you have to use again context colon property hyphen placeholder. Property hyphen placeholder. You should give the location of property placeholder. You need to give class path. Class path means your class path location from main, right? As soon as you created a project, from source src folder, you can see, right, inside source. Okay, whatever path you have here, that path you need to pass. Class path means inside the source src. Inside src I have resources, inside resources I have application properties. So I am giving class path colon resources, which means inside src there is a resource folder. Inside resource folder I have application properties. Okay, so as soon as you do this second line, what it will do, it will load your properties into IOC context level, into IOC memory, you can say. Okay, it will remember them until you shut down your application. Until you shut down your application, right, it will keep them into memory. It will keep them into memory, IOC memory. It will keep them into IOC memory temporarily. It will remember them until you shut down it. So what properties it will remember? These two properties, sim provider and phone name. Okay, by second step it got loaded all your properties. Now in line number 9 and 10, I am trying to creating a sim object and phone object. Okay, so when you mention sim here, it will create sim class object. It will create a sim class object. As soon as it created sim class object, it will go inside and it will try to find out any spring annotations are available or not. So after this sim class object creation, again it will revisit your class and checks, does it have any annotations? Yes. It will identify spring annotation value. Okay. So he is expecting some property here. What is that property key? Sim provider. So whether that sim provider property is already in my memory or not, it will see. So already you have loaded it. So as you already provided it, it will inject that property into this variable. So sim provider name, whatever you have geo, right, that it will pass. And you created phone object. For phone also it will do the same. First it will create phone object, then next when it is visit phone class, it will identify at the rate value annotation. So value mentioned with a key phone name, so that phone name value is iPhone 15, that iPhone 15 it will pass it here. Okay, now when you create this objects, right, not only objects creation, it will do the dependency injection of your properties also. Here you are not passing them, you are not using any setter or constructor. You did use a different approach. Using at the rate value you are trying to pass them. How this at the rate value parameters will be available? From properties I am making available them into IOC context. As soon as this object is created here, it will load your properties at this line, right? In line number 11 itself, it will create all your objects, and as well as it will load properties, everything it will do. So now when I run it, you can see I'm trying to printing phone object and sim object. You can see phone got injected with iPhone 15, and sim provider you can see GeoNet, right? So in case if you want to change them from Geo to VI, if I change it, and again when you run it, you can see iPhone 15 and the SIM provider is VI network. So from now onwards you need not to go to visit your XML file and do the changes. Instead you go to your properties file and change your property, whichever property you want. You guys clear with value annotation now? Am I audible? Yes, right? Yeah. So the mistake what we have done is we used util namespace, util schema we used to load properties. So you may ask a question, why then util schema? Using util we injected collections. If you remember required collections, util colon list class, util colon set class, util colon map with map class that we use. As well as you can load properties also. Using this util tag, you can load properties also. But that properties will not remember by IOC, not into IOC context. By using util if you load, they will not load it into IOC context. Then what is the use case? In which case we use util properties? I'll give you that example as well here. We did a mistake with util, right? Let me show you what util can do. Okay, so some properties I want to load it into my class. I'll be writing one class here, application properties. Into this application properties, I want to inject a properties object. Right? Properties class, Java utils properties. So I have a property here. This property I want to inject. So let me put a setter method here. So using the setter method, I want to pass this properties into this application properties class. And let me override toString method. Properties also you can inject. We tried set list to map, but not properties. Now see, this properties also you can inject. Bean class beans dot application properties. Or you can inject properties. I have a setter method here, set properties. So if you want to hard code them, this is how you can hard code. Setter method properties. Now I need to inject properties here. How to inject properties? There is a tag name called props. Using props, you can give each property key and value. Application property, something application name, econ, properties key and value, application code. Usually applications will have code. If it is a big organization, each application will have a code. Application something I'm giving a junk data here. Okay, some properties I'm giving here: app name, app code, app admin, app password, something. Okay, so these properties I want to inject into my class. So key value pair you can put here, and this key value pair you can load it into this application properties using properties tag. Okay, so now get that properties tag, get that properties object here, ap.get bean, application properties. We have a dedicated class application properties we created to get the properties. System.out.println properties. ToString method not printing them, right? ToString method, this property is not override. Okay, right click and generate source, generate setters, or setters data, generate ToString method. Okay, so the properties you can see here, properties whichever we composed from XML file. So these properties are dedicated to this application properties. These properties are dedicated to this application properties here. Okay, so these properties are dedicated to application properties which are loading from here, which are loading here. Now instead of loading this way, right, properties here, you can have the same properties from properties file also. You can have same properties from properties file also. So what I will do, let me create one more properties file with any name. You can create my app dot properties, my app dot properties I will create here. App name is equal to the form app code key and value. App name, app code, something app admin, app password, something I have. Now these keys you can load. How do you load them? Instead of using this approach, let me comment it. Using this util namespace, we have util namespace here, right? Using this util namespace, we can load them. Property, properties, the dependency name is properties. Now here, right, to inject these dependencies, you can use this approach or this util colon properties. Util colon properties, properties file location you can give here. Same way. Into this center method, right? Yeah. Instead you hard coding them into your properties setter method, you can directly pass properties using util namespace. So class path, resources, my app dot properties, my app dot properties. See, now my app properties are getting loaded. How we loaded them? Using util namespace. Using util namespace, loading them. So using util namespace also we can load properties, but into a particular properties, not into the IOC context level. IOC never remember them. If you load these properties via this approach, right, IOC will not remember them. So this is the mistake that we did in the last session, right? We tried loading these properties, application properties, using this tag. So usually it will not remember them. It will not keep it into its memory. Here it won't keep it. So that's why we are unable to load it. But the same properties, if I load using context, then it will keep that properties into memory. So that's the reason whatever properties I have here, that property is now available for my sim class or phone class to inject. Okay, yeah. So that is the difference. So this is where we confused. Okay, are you guys clear? Yes, no. Which statement? I mean the overall concept again. Okay. Hmm. So do you remember we tried first to write innocently, we tried using loading properties using util properties in the last session. We didn't use the context namespace. We directly added this. We directly added this here without this annotation config and this. We did this. And we were continuously getting null values into sim and phone. We were expecting that loading these properties and that properties I can able to get here using at the rate value, but that is not happened. The reason util properties will not load them into context. When you use this util, right, it never remember them. It won't load it into IOC. Here it won't keep them into IOC memory. IOC will not remember them. if you load via util properties. So instead of that, what you should have done is you should have used context colon property placeholder and you should have loaded your properties. So from my application properties file, whatever I have two keys, sim and phone name, the two I want to inject into my sim class and phone class and loading the properties from this application properties file. And that values are getting injected using at the rate value annotation. So at the rate value annotation also you need to activate it. At the rate value annotation also you need to activate it. Not only loading these properties, right? You should activate them as well. To activate them, I used context colon annotation colon. Now my properties are ready in IOC memory and my at the rate value annotation also activated. Now whichever properties are getting loaded into IOC memory, if I use that keys anywhere using at the rate value annotation, that values will be injected. That values will be injected here. Now coming to util properties, where can I use util properties? You can use as an alternate for properties. As an alternate for properties. As an alternate for properties, you can use props and prop key and value. You can pass properties here, like your collection map you injected, right? Map with key and value. Similar way, properties also will contain key and value. Properties is one of the map type, right? So if your setter method is properties type, if your setter method is properties type, you can inject that properties using props tag. Props key and value you can pass. If it is a map, you can use map and entry key and value. Each entry key and value you need to pass. If it is a properties, you can use props. Props, property key and value you can pass. Okay, property key and value you can pass. Instead of hard coding them here, this properties also, if you want to load from properties file, use this util namespace instead of context, right? Util colon properties, you can load your properties. Indirectly it will create a properties object. Indirectly it will create a properties object when you use this, right? It will create a properties object by loading this properties from location. Something like your collections properties. Properties be equal to new properties of file input stream. You can load this file, right? Same way. This statement is going to create a properties object here. Properties p equal to new properties in core Java. How you create it? New file input stream or new file we create, right? New file and the file path we pass here. The same thing it will do at this line. So it will create a properties object by loading your properties. Have you guys tried this in util? Core Java utils we have properties. You must be tried. Yeah. So the same thing, same stuff it will do. It will load your properties file by creating a properties object. Then directly your properties object will be injected into your application properties here. Clear? So it is for simple properties, and this context colon properties are for loading into IOC context, loading into IOC memory. We can load them into IOC memory and we can use them here using at the rate value annotation. Okay, so this is for simple properties. Okay, this is for simple properties. We will see secondary types auto wiring. Okay, secondary types auto wiring we will see. In case if your class contains a secondary type dependency, that one also you can avoid doing manual dependency injection. Consider you have a phone class and this phone class is having sim type dependency. Sim type dependency, usually we used setter methods or constructors here. Setters or constructors we used before. Now you can avoid them to inject this sim. How we injected before? In XML file, we created bean id, yes, class name, sim class, and when the sim class dependency I have in phone, property name, your sim reference name, and you will be passing reference of your object here. When you have secondary data type dependencies, you can pass directly here. So using setter method, property tag or constructor tag used to pass references here. Whatever object you have created, right? This object ID as a reference you used to pass here. This is in case of manual dependency injection. This is in case of manual dependency injection using setter method or constructor. Now you can avoid both setter and constructor instead of them, right? When you have secondary type data type, particularly references, wherever you have references need to pass, you can use auto wire. You can use auto wire. Just a minute, guys. Wait, wait. మళ్ళీ వస్తా. ఏం కాదు. ఏమైందంటే గేట్లో పడ్డా. అదే. You can use auto wired here. Auto wired here. This auto wired, when you mention it, right, you need not to use setters or constructors. You need not to use setters or constructors. So you need not to bother about this property tag here. And what about this? Do I need to mention any key here, like for value in the properties, right? The keys we mentioned here, the properties keys we mentioned here for sim or for phone. Same way, do I need to mention any key here? Means nothing. When you use particularly secondary data types here, right? When you use particularly secondary data types, you need not to mention their keys here. You need not to mention their keys here. Directly the sim object, right? When phone object is getting created, right, phone object will be created first, and it will verify if your phone is having any annotations or not. So if it find auto wired annotation, then auto wired annotation configured on a secondary type. Usually auto wired annotation we will configure on secondary types only. It is not eligible for primitives. So the dependency is here on secondary types only you can configure auto wire, not for the primitives. Auto wire is always for secondary types, not for primitives. So when you mentioned it on the secondary type, sim type, what it will do? First it will create phone object, then it will go inside this class, it will identify auto wired annotation, and this annotation is mentioned on top of a secondary type object. Now Spring will do what? It will try to check for that sim object within IOC container. Whether did I created any sim object or not, it will check. If not created, it will verify whether that sim object configuration at least available or not. IOC will do what? In order, first you have sim class here. Sim object usually it will create first. Then it will go to phone. So if already sim object is available here, if already sim object is created here, sim object is available here, and phone object also it will create. Now inside phone you use auto wire. What it will do? Already sim object is created and available here. So this object, right? This object automatically it will inject into phone object. So you will be getting sim object here automatically. Though you are not using property or constructor tag, whatever sim object you have here, this sim object automatically will be injected here. Automatically your sim object will be injected, though you don't use any property tag or constructor tag. Manually you need not to do any dependency injection of secondary types. Just mention auto wired and create that particular class object, but don't inject, right? Some kind of automation happening here. What is the advantage with this automation means, if you take an example of a car factory, right? Instead instead engineers manually doing the or creating the cars, right? Engineers will just to monitor what robots doing there, right? Usually before this robots and automation, employees or engineers, they used to create cars, which means they used to create outer shell of the car, outer shell, and then they used to create engines and painting also. There will be again a paint body shop, painting work, something final touch-ups or leather wrappings. If it is a premium car, they do all this. Okay, so usually car will be designed in step by step. First they will create outer shell, and then they will fix engine into it, then they will do painting work, then seating, audio system, everything they will fit together. So in each step, a set of people will involve manually, set of people will involve, all the engineers will involve who are experts in that particular area, and they will do all these tasks. All the engineers manually will do the tasks. So when you don't have huge machinery which do automatic car creation, right, lot of employees need to involve there, and they should deliver it, right? Engineers manually, they should involve into each layer of it. Okay, they should create outer shell of the car, whatever time it takes, a month or 2 months. Then the same group of people should go and design the engine, and the same group of people should, you know fix both together, and then they should take it to paint body shop. If it is manually happening, they need to do the painting, finally they need to do all the final touch-ups. Everything an engineer need to do it manually. Instead engineers doing it manually, if they have automated robots, so robots will do that task, assigned task, in a same way for each and every car. Let's say if they want to deliver same model Maruti Swift car by end of the month, 1 lakh cars if they want to deliver, if they depend on employees manually, if they are designing the product and delivering it, they may not deliver always the same product with same quality. If man is doing, man may not able to reproduce same quality again and again, and they can't able to deliver that many cars in a month. Though if you have a big factory also, if manually people are working on a car design or car implementation, they may not deliver that many cars in a month. Let's say looking a car is interesting, and 1 lakh cars orders they got, 1 lakh orders they received. So if manually they are doing this task, they may not able to achieve this mark. They may design 1,000 cars or 2,000 cars, and they can deliver it. So meanwhile the business will lose. Okay, people will lose the interest and business will get loss in the business. So instead doing it manually, if you assign robots here, if you assign robots here, robots, you know, if you assign a job to them like creating outer shell or fixing a engine or painting work or leather wrapping or whatever it is, if you assign these tasks to robots, robots can work 24 by 7. And if you see, right, let me show you a video. Yeah, so if you see this video, right, if you see here, they are doing something. They are, okay, see, the bonnet it is fixing. See, outer shell creating. When they do it right repeatedly, they will do the same task without failing, right? For every, see, each and every part it is taking the top also. See how many cars it is delivering, fixing a top to one car, and it is moving out and next car will coming in. Robots will not take rest and they will continuously work 24 by 7, and they will produce the same quality. Doors also fixing, see, the doors job also they are doing. Just engineers are monitoring. See, painting work also done by, see, it is dipping into the paint. Finally, painted car arrived. What it is doing? Something. So there are many steps need to be taken care. See, engine fitting also. So here and there, if any small outer shells need to be fixed, engineers are doing that. So a lot of automation happening there. So automation will produce the quality, right? The benefit of the automation is automation will produce the quality. When you go with the automation, if you automate something, that will produce the same quality always without failure, right? Without failure, always it will execute the same task if you automate something. So when you imagine your application also in a large picture, right, in a large picture, not only one simple phone class or sim class, during implementation of our MVC application, right, we will be having lot of front end pages, right, thousands of front end UI forms we will be have. We will be having, consider you have 1,000 front end views. For each view we maintain a controller here in the back end. And same way for each controller again we maintain a service class here. And again for each service we maintain, we need to create a DO class here. So when you have this many classes, right, when you have this many classes for your application, and if you go with manual dependency injection, right, always in XML file, what you need to do, you need to create a DO class object and that object need to be injected here. Service class object you need to create and that object need to be injected into controller. So this task you need to do manually, 1,000 DAOs into 1,000 times into service, 1,000 services into controller. 2,000 times you need to do manual dependency injection. 2,000 times manually manual dependency injection you need to perform. So while doing this 2000 times, you may do mistakes. You may do mistakes. If you have 2000 or more than 2000, sometimes you may do the mistakes if you do the manual dependency injection. In case of manual dependency injection, you know how we are performing, right? When you see dependency injection of all types here, how we injected secondary types. Did we see an example? Yeah. So how we injected secondary type using a reference. So if you have one or two classes, it's okay. But when you have thousands of classes, how you will perform this dependency injection manually that many times? It is very tough job. So carefully you need to inject them. Like while making a car, carefully you need to you know, fit each and every part. Same way here also. Instead, you doing this dependency injection manually, right, of secondary data types, you just leave it for IOC. IOC will take care for you. For that, what all you need to do, just use @auto_void wherever you need an object, and make sure that that object is creating. Okay, when you mention auto void, don't worry about dependency injection. Just make sure that object is creating an XML file or not. So just to create this 3000 classes objects, just create this 3000 classes objects, and don't worry about dependency injections. Dependency injection will be taken care by auto void annotation. You need not to worry about DI. And what about this objects creation? I have a controllers, 1000 service, 1000 DAOs. Do I need to mention all that classes, 3000 classes in XML file, 2000 manual dependency injections I have, 3000 beans creation also I have. Do I need to do that as well? You need not to do that. Okay. For this one also they give an automation. Right? For dependency injection we used @auto_void. Same way for bean creation they given @annotations. We call them component annotations. They given component and its child annotations. Just if you put this annotation on top of your class bus, you need not to create even object from XML file. You need not to even create your object from XML file. So you need not to create any class here. You need not to create any class here. Even this bean creation also not required, which means 3000 times beans tags in your XML file, and 2000 times this property tags, all together 5000 tags all together you can avoid, right? All this manual configuration, right, you can avoid manually. If you are configuring them, you can avoid them. Just to use these annotations wherever you want. So without you do configuring them into XML file itself, it will create objects for you, it will do auto wearing for you, like it will do everything automatically for you, right? With the example we will see tomorrow how to do auto wiring and how to create automatic objects. Okay, so this concept, I mean this topic is very important. Okay, to create objects and to inject them, it is very important. So tomorrow we'll see that dependency injection object creation. Uh-huh. No, did I touch that topic now? No, right? No, if that is not discussed, okay, let's leave it for now. That is again a depth discussion. Okay, we are not at there. We go there and we'll discuss about it. Okay, so upcoming 2 3 sessions for annotations whichever I discuss are very important. Okay, yeah. So yep, just don't miss them. So tomorrow we will see, okay, at the rate auto wide depth discussion and stereotypes. We call them as stereotypes. Okay, so don't miss it. Any questions? Someone pinging continuously. Video example. Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, sure. Recording today not available. Okay, sorry guys. Today recording will not available. Tomorrow available. You will get this video. Okay, I'm actually outstation. I'm not at home, so I have some other activities. Tomorrow morning I'll upload. Okay, after tomorrow session. This example anyway. I'll keep it in Git. Yeah. Somebody asking something. Okay. Mhm. Go ahead. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, we will see. Okay. Anyway, yeah, yeah, we will see that tomorrow. We will be having a big example. Okay. Thereafter, you can see. Okay. Okay, guys. So join by 7 o'clock. We will be having 1 hour session. Okay, Tushar. 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes. Okay. So tomorrow, your wish, guys. I'll create a poll. If you want to join the session, or else you can take off tomorrow. It's up to you. Okay. So tomorrow is Dashara. You guys may take a holiday if you want. Okay. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Okay, guys. If everyone is fine, I'll connect tomorrow. I'll create that poll later. Okay. So yeah. Example I'll upload. Yeah. Yeah. I'll do it right away. New link, correct. So for every 1 month or 20 days, they'll change it. Okay. So only for properties. No. For all collections, we used it. If you remember, for custom collections, we used it, right? Did you do that example? So actually, yeah, we used it for properties colon, sorry, util colon set list map with custom classes also we used. If you remember, link a list object, isn't it? We tried, right? hmm Custom collections we tried. I remember. Hmm. You can see. Okay, link a list, tree, map,